All right, in Path of Exile Harvest, we're adding 4 new Warcry skills, 1 new support, and reworking 3 existing ones. We've generally improved the options available for those who want to utilize Warcries in their builds. Today's news post reveals the new skills and what to expect in terms of changes. Some time ago, we decided that it would be good to do a balance pass that focused on two-handed weapons and the slower but stronger playstyle. That's a difficult challenge for GGG to get that right in PoE. There's a bunch of problems they have to overcome. While we were exploring how to best achieve this, it became clear that giving Warcry skills some long overdue improvements could be of great help. Our first step in doing this was to define for ourselves what a Warcry should be and what function it fulfills. We found that Warcries should release a shockwave that taunts enemies, apply either a buff or debuff where its power is based on nearby enemies, exert or power up your next few attacks with special properties. I like the addition of an exert style mechanic. These rules can be flexible but provide a base starting point for what Warcries should look like within the new system. We started by reworking existing Warcries to fit within this set of rules, and as we made new ones to fill in gaps we felt were present. We also changed the mechanics of nearby enemies to care about the power of these enemies. In the old system, 5 small monsters would provide 5 times the Warcry benefit, compared to a single unique boss. This felt wrong. The new system now counts magic, rare, and unique enemies proportionate to their power, so that your Warcry scales more effectively with the content you're facing. Great change. Currently, this works by counting normal monsters as 1, magic as 2, rare as 10, and unique as 20. Ooh, that's pretty good, actually. I was wondering what the numbers would be like on that. So a pack of magic monsters is twice as effective. Rares are 10? That's really good, actually. There's a few situations where you'd have like several rares near you, like facing a legion or something. That means your Warcry is going to be really effective in like content like that. That's far more dangerous normally as well, so it's good. Enduring Cry received a relatively minimal rework, but we wanted to see if we could improve various aspects of the skill while we're at it. It still generates charges based on the power of nearby enemies, but also provides a short burst of very powerful healing. It also temporarily gives you additional resistance and physical damage reduction for a short duration. Oh, neato. So even more Enduring Cry. Unlike other Warcries, Enduring Cry does not exert your next few attacks. It's purely defensive. Intimidating Cry was only obtainable through a unique item previously, in addition to it now being available as a skill gem. So this was from the Farrell's Fur or something, was it? It has undergone a full rework to be a lot more punchy and exciting. Its benefits are purely offensive. It achieves this by intimidating nearby enemies and exerting your next few attacks to deal double damage. So that's an actual double damage stat, I'm guessing. It also provides a buff that lets you ignore some of your enemy's physical damage reduction based on nearby enemy power, or reveal what number of exerted attacks each Warcry creates closer to launch. Okay, yeah, they're still figuring it out. It's intended to be the offensive counterpart to Enduring Cry. It should work in a wide variety of builds to make your next few attacks feel really powerful. Farrell's Chase was Intimidating Cry. So intimidates, which is 10% increased damage taken, and double damage attacks from the exert. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Ancestral Cry. This is a new Warcry. It was designed to work well with specifically strike calls, like Ancestral Strike. Okay. It causes your next few strikes to also target nearby enemies, similar to Ancestral Call. Wait, what? So it adds total number of Ancestral Call strikes. It also provides a buff based on the power of nearby enemies, which both increases your melee range as well as providing bonus armor. It's intended to be a well-rounded Warcry that generally provides benefit to anyone interested in playing strike skills. Man, that's weird. That's a weird one. I think I like it. It's very odd though. Yeah, so effectively you probably wouldn't not use Ancestral Cry, Ancestral Call or something like it, right? That increases your total number of strike targets. But you'd use this to provide more strikes, which means if you're doing melee splash overlapping, it's going to get a lot stronger as well. I mean, that seems good, sure. I mean, yeah, that's mandatory for a strike build. Like, you would not use this, right? Why wouldn't you always use them? Yeah, I mean, that's fine, though. I think that's fine that every melee build will want to use a Warcry. Because it improves Path of Exile's general gameplay to have more skills that you're actively using. It's probably, as long as it's something that's like you're actively using and not just like you have to press this every 3 seconds kind of deal. Like Flask are currently. I think I like it. It's a bit odd. No, I can't quite put my finger on it. It feels a little odd maybe. So you smack out one of these Ancestral Cries and all of a sudden with your Viper Strike or whatever, you can hit everything on the screen. It sounds like, basically. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing a strike build, it's not going to be a choice. You'll use Ancestral Cry for sure. Maybe you'd have like... Maybe you might also have an Enduring Cry or something to weave between it if you've got some investment. Seismic Cry. We saw this in the video. We created a new category of skills known as Slam skills and wanted to make Warcry that synergizes well with these skills. It causes your next few Slam skills to have an increased area of effect and more damage, which both increase with each attack until you reset the Warcry or your exerted attacks run out. Ah, so it gets more and more powerful for several hits. So the third or fourth hit or something will be the strongest. It knocks enemy backs and interrupts them. Interrupts? Weird that they use the word interrupt and not stun. The only interrupt in PoE is stunning or freezing or something like that, right? I guess I only stun really because freezing I think just locks them and then they do it after they unfreeze. Do whatever they're doing. Interrupt would be a stun. So maybe it's like a guaranteed stun? Could be a new mechanic? Or maybe just like what they're calling their little mini guaranteed stun? It could be like a really short duration guaranteed stun. That would effectively function as an interrupt. It could be like a, 0.1 second stun. Which doesn't really stun enemies, but does interrupt them if they're currently doing something. Yeah, like a micro stun. I kind of like that as a mechanic though. That's really cool. This is much more like interesting reactive gameplay then. Is you're about to get smacked by a few things. You unleash that Seismic Cry. A lot of the time you probably won't like really use it because like, oh, that enemy's attacking, I'll interrupt them. But maybe on some bosses, if it works on them. But it'll just passively interrupt a pack of enemies that you've leapt into the middle of and stop them from smacking you, which basically cancels all their animations because everything has like a bit of a... So if you're just... and they go... interrupts their attack. Takes them a full second to get another attack. By that time they're dead, so it could, maybe it's tagged as a different sort of thing to a stun as well, but functions similarly to a short stun. That's really interesting. Also, I really like that. It then grants you a buff based on nearby enemy power, introduces enemy stun threshold, making it easy to stun enemies with your hits. So stun buff doesn't. So mostly it's about the exert as far as like the power, but the skill itself has really cool stuff on it in terms of the interrupts. The stun is like kind of whatever, but the stun boosting is whatever, but I'm sure it'd be nice, but the interrupt's really cool though, I like that. Seismic Cry sounds dope. I like that a lot. Rallying Cry has been reworked and given a new identity. It's previously worked well with support style builds and we designed it to provide a new way to support allies. It causes nearby allies to gain a buff that grants them a percentage of your main hand weapon's damage based on the power of nearby enemies. It also exerts your next few attacks to deal more damage based on how many allies you have near you. So exert can have different buffs associated with it. Okay, it's not just one thing. Unlike most other Warcries, the power of the buff comes from both the power of both nearby enemies and allies. I wonder if with like Warcry investment you could multi-exert your attacks, because it's like a set number of attacks. If you like pop a Rallying Cry and a Seismic Cry, because you have like a bunch of cooldown reduction like on Warcries, could you like double exert your attacks with different effects? Build into Warcries and keep up like 2 or 3 different exert buffs. Unlike most other Warcries, the power of this buff comes from both the power of nearby enemies and allies. This is a rework to an existing skill, gives a new identity. Obviously seemed to fit a very supportive type of role, but we wanted to do a new way to support allies. It works well with minions or to support a full party of allies. Infernal Cry. Ooh, new. It was previously known as Abyssal Cry. Wait, what? Wait, what? Wait, what? Goodbye Abyssal Cry is now Infernal Cry. I guess they determined that Warcries wanted a much stronger melee flavor, and having a Chaos one didn't really make much sense. They aimed at keeping its old features while providing some new exciting ones to refresh its appeal. I don't really care that Abyssal Cry is not Chaos anymore. Fire's probably more thematic, as long as it has the same mechanics, because the mechanics of it are really nice. It covers enemies in Ash. Okay, cool. A debuff that scales with the power of nearby enemies. Wait, so the Ash effect scales with the debuff? That's weird, because covered in Ash is a set mechanic, doesn't usually scale. It's like increased fire damage taken, basically, and lowered fire rates, or maybe just increased fire damage taken? I think it's just increased fire damage taken. So it's probably just scaling that amount of increased fire damage taken. It also causes enemies that are in the area affected by this debuff to explode with fire damage when they are slain. It doesn't say based on percentage health. I assume it probably is. It probably is. It also exerts your next few attacks to trigger Combust when hitting an enemy. Combust is a triggered area of effect attack skill granted by the Infernal Cry gem. It scales with attack damage modifiers and can benefit from your supports. What? Okay, this is wild. A few things. So, firstly, Abyssal Cry was difficult to scale because it only scaled with percent damage and chaos damage. But if you did scale, it was really powerful. Like the pops would do tons of damage. Infernal Cry being fire damage will be much easier to scale because it'll scale with elemental, percent damage, and percent fire damage. As well as percent damage. So that's way easier to scale the pops from Infernal Cry. So unless like they heavily nerf the damage of the explosions, you're gonna get some big pops from Infernal Cry. Actually sounds dope. Secondly, the combust. So exerts your next few attacks to trigger combust. Triggered area of effect attack skill. So it's an attack skill from the Warcry. The Warcry has its own attack skill that it procs. What the shit? That's crazy. And it scales with attack damage modifiers. So it sounds like a AoE, like a little fire explosion, in addition to the on-kill fire explosions. So Infernal Cry is going to be really satisfying to play, I reckon, because it's going to explode enemies when they die and do other explosions. That sounds badass. That sounds super sick. Got to use it? Yeah, no, this sounds great. There might be a video down here we can see, but that sounds like it's going to be really, really satisfying. Holy shit. That's very cool. That's definitely... I'm very comfortable with giving Abyssal Cry a John Jam 7. Salute to its death in favor of Infernal Cry. It's a solid trade-off. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of doing like a fiery chieftain-y sort of build, but Infernal Cry makes me consider otherwise. That's sick. General's Cry. It's an intense new Warcry that's been destined to be very open-ended in how it can be used. It's a skill support hybrid, which melee attack skills can be linked to. This Warcry summons a ghostly mirage warriors from corpses near you. These ghosts use one of the linked skills once before disappearing. The number of warriors you summon is based on the total power of nearby enemies, as well as the power of nearby corpses. General's Cry lets you summon your own legion of warriors to destroy your enemies using a large selection of skills. What the fuck? Okay, so you link General's Cry to Earthquake and a bunch of support skills. And then you Warcry around enemies. You do an Earthquake, you Warcry. It summons all the dead bodies, who then stand up, do another Earthquake, and you get like 8 overlapping Earthquakes. Sounds very crazy. What the shit? Who came up with this idea? That's wild. That sounds very potentially busted. But also terrible, maybe? Like, it could be really bad. It could be one of those things like, oh, it's like cast on melee kill. And you're like, no, everything's already dead. Sounds kind of useless. But if you can supply your own corpses as well, there could be some fun things you can do with that. I don't think they're minions. It's probably more just like triggers an attack. It's probably just like a ghostly warrior that triggers an attack. I doubt they're minions. Ghostly Mirage warriors. Yeah, it's probably more like, say, an Ancestral Strike sort of thing. Ancestral Core Strike. Gigaquake game crashes, yeah. Can't wait for the screen-sized overlapping 10 freaking earthquakes triggering. Sounds like brand recall for melee. It's more like Arcanist Brand and Spellslinger and Poet's Pen and that sort of thing, but not on attack, on Warcry, and only with corpses. You have to fuel it with corpses. It's really wild. Let's watch the video. For some reason I can't full screen this. Anyway. Rallying Cry. They look pretty as well, though. Warcries look cooler. Bit of Ancestral Cry Molten Strike. Yep. Yeah, a lot of overlapping fireballs. I'm sure that's going to be popular. Jesus. Look at them go. They're like striking things across the entire screen. Normally, Intimidating Cry would have been like Megapod, but compared to some of these other Warcries that have been revealed, that's like nothing. Enduring Cry sounds really good. I mean, it was already good. Now that it provides extra like mitigation layers on top of its endurance charges, that's really good. Infernal Cry. Fuck, that's really good. Oh god, look at it. Oh my god, the little combustion explosions look really... Oh my god, look at that. Who is not gonna play Infernal Cry? Look at it. Fucking boom, everything blowing up, and then the corpses... So it does double explosions. You know when you're like, I really want my explodey chest because explosions are great? Well, this gives you the explosions, and then other explosions on top of it. Look at all the popcorn pops. So this is after the... So these ones over here, hold on. These ones here weren't tagged by the Warcry. These are just the combustion pops going off. And that's what it looks like when you get the blue plus the combustion procs. Shit. That's something else. Wait, they didn't show General Cry? I guess General's Cry is not ready to be shown yet. In addition, we're adding a new support gem that speeds up your Warcries in exchange for a slightly longer cooldown. Longer cooldown, but makes them faster. Okay. They made them... That's something they didn't mention in this post, is the fact that Warcries will be a bit slower to cast. But you can still, I think, invest into making them faster or instant cast, is my understanding. I've also added a keystone to the passive skill tree that makes Warcries instant. Oh, there you go. But causes them to share a cooldown. Ah, that's the trade-off. So to make them instant, now you have to take a keystone. That means you can't, like, rotate between them so easily. I mean, you still can. Wait, don't they share a cooldown by default now anyway? By default, Warcries no longer share cooldowns in order to promote builds using multiple Warcries. Yeah, okay, so right now, they actually share a cooldown anyway. So this brings that mechanic back to them. But now without instant cast, if you're willing to go non-instant cast, you can use several Warcries in a sequence. That's insane. That's insane. Shit, that's really good. So that means you can, like, insta-pop 2 exert ones. Like we were talking about that earlier, exert stacking. You could insta-pop 2 exert ones. Or, I mean, you can have, like, Enduring Cry and like, Infernal Cry and use them as needed because they'll be separate cooldowns. I mean, instant cast is really nice, so you might still want to go for that in some cases, but having no cooldown loss is going to be really good too. Man, there's some sick combo there. I'm really excited about Warcries. Like, holy crap, that's really good. Also, Infernal Cry just looked absolutely insane. It looks so satisfying. Holy shit. Freaking this Infernal Cry. Look at it. Oh, the combustion procs look amazing. And then the blue when they all pop is... Fuck. As if we're not gonna play that, right? You would be mad to not play that. Holy shit. And then you can weave in some Enduring Cry or even Seismic Cry I really like as well for the interrupt as well. If you're gonna do like Tectonic Slam, you can get the slam skill exert buffs from Seismic Cry as well as interrupting, which is a little bit of defensive application, some stuns for extra defense, and then weave in Infernal Cry for bloofing down packs. Would Infernal Cry be convertible to another element? Possibly? What can you do fire to? Fire to Chaos is the only thing you can do fire to. So I guess you could do fire to Chaos, yeah. I don't know in what situation you'd want to do that, but you could get Abyssal Cry back. I do not miss Abyssal Cry in light of Infernal Cry. Right? I would say Infernal Cry is a worthy trade-off for Abyssal Cry dying. Yeah, I am okay with this. I am okay with this. Agreed? Agreed? Yeah, agreed. Well, looks so good. I'm sad that they didn't show General's Cry yet, but it's probably it probably is not quite finished. Some of this stuff they need to like polish up the effects and everything. A lot of this looks good. Funnily enough, Intimidating Cry is the one that I'm like probably least hyped on. Whereas in a vacuum previously, Intimidating Cry would have been like really good. But it's just like the other stuff looks so good, so it's hard for it to compare. General's Cry is a big question mark. It could be really insane or it could be really terrible. And I don't know how that one's gonna play out because it might be like a custom melee kill, you know, like this rarely is useful. Or it might be one of those ones that's like, hey, I'm using Wormfly. Oh no, they don't leave corpses. Hey, I'm using Desecrate on some sort of auto-procking mechanic and I'm triggering 20 earthquakes at once to one-shot the boss. Because I get 20 stacks of General's Cry's effect for Warcrying on a boss. And then, yep. And that's 20 earthquakes on the boss. And from my Desecrates that are spammed everywhere. There could be some really broken stuff with this. This is one of those ones like, right, GG make things like this sometimes, and I'm like, I'm so surprised they made this. That sounds like a nightmare to balance. I love it though. I love it. But I'm most hyped on Infernal Cry. It looks sick. Wow. That is way more than I expected from the Warcry post. I expected Warcry stuff to look pretty decent. And I was pretty sure I was going to play some sort of Warcry melee stuff, but this is above and beyond what I anticipated.